this meeting to order. Thank you for coming, and I'm going to hand control of our meeting to our presiding officer, Emmy Bartholomew. Emmy.
Hello, welcome everyone to our December humorous speech party. Yes, we're going to have a party today. And to get started, I would like to start by reading our club mission statement. We provide a supportive and positive learning experience in which members are empowered to develop communication, humorous communication, and storytelling skills, resulting in greater self-confidence and personal growth. So our emphasis as an advanced club is helping people to add humor to their speech and helping them to become better storytellers. All right, and to get things started today, I'm going to introduce our Toastmaster of the evening, moi. So in the interests of having a joyful, wonderful party, I would like to have you all gather round because I've got a tale of stockings, Christmas stockings, spells, and sheer brilliance of being blunt. Do you ever expect people to know what you're thinking? Do you want them to read your mind? Well, join the club. For years, I fancied myself the queen of hints and subtleties, assuming that my loved ones possessed a sixth sense for my desires. Spoiler alert, they didn't. They never put one thing in my stocking. It's very disappointing. Well, I hope that you have learned how to ask for what you want. In the meantime, we're going to listen to some stories from all our members and from guests to help us celebrate this season. And to get started, I'll have our timer show us her timing cards. Cheryl, Mark.
Thank you very much, Emmy. I appreciate you introducing me. Tonight I am your timer, and you should all see me in the top left corner. I have raised my hand, so you should be able to see me there. And that's where you'll see my virtual colors that I'm going to show you where I'm timing you. When you get to 5 minutes, I'm going to give you a green background. When you get to 6 minutes, I'm going to give you the yellow background. Man, that really washes me out. And at 7 minutes, I'm going to turn red, and and it will stay that way until you finish. And when you finish, then that will be your time, and I will record it. And at the end of the meeting, I will give everybody's time to them. And it's a pleasure for me tonight to be your timer, and I look forward to all your stories, and hopefully I'll be watching the timer and not paying too much attention to the stories. So I'll turn it back to you, Emmy, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, we also have the Palmer's Toastmaster Club joining us this evening. As you can see, their window says Palmer Toastmasters. And so we have 2 people, looks like 2 people in the room, and then Vicki Randolph is also with us. She's not feeling so good tonight, but she's with us. And we are very happy to welcome them to our humorous speech party to celebrate the season. So welcome everybody. All righty, are we ready to get started? I think so. Let's get going with our first speaker. Our first speaker tonight is working on her visionary communication pathway, a level 3 elective, Connect with Storytelling. Imagine. Our first speaker has spent years honing her navigation skills. And then she discovered that those skills were hopelessly useless on a self-guided walking tour. Tonight, she invites us to open our minds to the possibility that you can be lost and not lost at the same time. Let's welcome Mary Morrison with her speech, Lost Yet Found. Mary.
Surely you've had friends who get lost, people who head the wrong direction on the freeway, southbound instead of northbound, or the ones that you're supposed to meet somewhere and they show up really late and they say, I just didn't realize it was going to take so long to get here, only to know afterwards when they made their way home, it was half the distance. They just took a very circuitous route. Or those people who step up to give people directions when asked, even though they don't know what they're talking about. Fellow Toastmasters, you've probably met some of those people. If you think you haven't, well, I'm here to say tonight, that is me. Yep, I've just shared a few of the very improbable scenarios that happen to me regularly as I was lost, basically lost in a state of unconscious incompetency at navigating. I was so clueless, I didn't think about giving people direction. I always thought I knew the way till they drove off. And my friend would say, what in the world are you thinking? I wasn't thinking. It really came to a head when I lost my son at a busy fairgrounds. And after spending a few frantic hours looking for him, reunited at the lost parent booth, we walked our way back to the car. And he was telling me on the way there what he'd done to try to find me. He went to the lost and found. He went to the entrance we had come in. He even had his hand stamped, walked his way to the car, waited for me, and then made his way back to the entrance and waited for me some more. Astounded at a 6-year-old who could do this, my only response was, what in the world made you think I could find my way to the car without you? Toastmasters, I was hopeless, but I didn't want to feel so helpless at being lost. So I thought I need some strategies. There's got to be ways that I can get better at this. I developed a few and then had a chance to practice them while in Kauai on vacation with my husband. He was going off in one direction ziplining, and that same day I found I could go on a self-guided walking tour at a botanical garden. I was pretty excited. First, I didn't have to do ziplining, and second, I got to spend my time in a happy place. Before we got there, I had worked out that we would need to practice the route from zipline to garden, and garden to zipline, zipline to garden, garden to zipline. He got a little dizzy as we repeated that routine a number of times and finally said, you're done, drop me now, you're on your way, I know you can do it. All right, I was ready. Into the botanical garden, onto the bus. I was so happy. Strategy number 1 was going to work. I was handed a map. Strategy number 2, the bus driver said there is a well-marked trail. Woohoo! Maps, trails, that works for me. Strategy number 3, well, really a backup strategy. There was a whole group of people here. And where there is a group, there is safety in numbers. If I just followed along with these people, even if I did get lost, there's a good possibility that we would be lost together and somebody would be able to find our way. So I set off. Oh, the smell, the sun, the warmth, the gentle breeze, the beautiful flowers, the birds, the tropical birds that were calling. It was almost a sensory overload. It was so relaxing, so beautiful. Everything that I wanted that afternoon to be. I was confident I had my strategies. As we continued to the group started to splinter off, and suddenly what had been a fairly big group broke into twos and threes. And it got a little awkward for me as I realized kind of following them looks like I'm a bit of a stalker now. I didn't want to be seen as a stalker, so I dropped back even more. But I continued to experience all the beauty of this garden, which I truly enjoyed. I was lost in the moment and finally came to a point where it said trail ends. But right next to the trail end sign was this big caution, wild pigs. Well, that moment, I realized I had got lost in my imagination also, because I went on overdrive. I'm certain I heard the snort and the snuffle and the rustling of a pig, and I needed to get out of there fast. But I didn't want to lose my cool at that moment. I'd worked too hard for this moment. So I thought, remember, there's a trail. I look around, I look down, I look all over. I don't see a trail anymore. I don't know where it's disappeared to. How does that stuff grow so fast in Hawaii? That's okay, I still have my map. Didn't I have my map? I apparently had lost my map somewhere. It's all right, it's all right. I've got this, I've got this. I remember the bus driver said, just look for the bridge, cross it, and you'll know you can find your way to the bus stop to get back and not miss the last bus. The bridge, the bridge, the bridge. My heart beating. I could hear the blood in my ears. You know, it is boom, boom, boom. Huff, puff my way down the hill, up the hill. Wait, I don't see a bridge, but I see a creek. Bridge has to go over water. If I cross the water, maybe I'll find my bus stop. Oh, victory at last. I made it. I made it. I made it to the bus stop. I got there in plenty of time to catch that bus, so I wouldn't miss my rendezvous with Chuck. I felt at that point I was consciously competent. I had moved from unconsciously incompetent to consciously competent. My strategies had worked. Or had they? As I looked at my legs and saw that they were very muddy and everyone else was very, very clean, I realized I had maybe been a little more lost than I had intended. But Toastmasters, what I really found that day was a confidence. Even in getting lost, didn't matter. And now what I have really found is a new confidence in my GPS. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mary. That was so much fun. It made me associate with a couple of different things. One of them was I just went to a botanical gardens and I had to rest while everybody else went on. And I was supposed to meet them somewhere, and I had a map, and I looked at the map, and that didn't quite look like where I was going. I did get to where they were, but I kind of followed more intuition than map. I'm not good with maps. No maps. But I'm glad you found your competence. All right. Our second speaker tonight, Josh Lally. Did I say that correct, Josh? Okay. Josh is giving us a speech. Oh, something about Hollywood. It sounds like he might have gotten lost. Originally from Olympia, Washington, and now a proud member of Tahoma Talkers in Tacoma, Josh Lally has been honing his public speaking skills for the last 6 months. Inspired by his lifelong love of movies, Josh takes us behind the scenes of a Hollywood adventure filled with bold decisions, unexpected challenges, and one unforgettable detour. Please welcome Josh with his speech, Behind the Scenes, a Hollywood Misadventure. Josh.
For as long as I can remember, movies have been one of the greatest sources of entertainment for me, but also inspiration and the occasional misguided choice. I grew up watching all kinds of films, horror, adventure, and even the classics like Wizard of Oz, The Goonies, and yes, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. These movies shaped my sense of adventure and perhaps my questionable judgment at times. Inspired by the movies, I chased my own Hollywood story, one that eventually led me to not the red carpet, but a highly rated urgent care facility in Hollywood, California. In 2017, I was inspired to move to Los Angeles and pursue my dreams of becoming a filmmaker. With my 2 years of filmmaking classes at a local community college, I was ready to make my Hollywood film debut. And after weeding through countless sketchy Craigslist posts and ads promising fame and fortune, somehow I landed a job as a production assistant on a very low budget feature film. And I thought, this is it. This is my big break. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. A couple of days before shooting began, the assistant director bailed, and that should have been a huge red flag, but I somehow ignored it. And the director looked around the room and asked, does anyone have any AD experience? And I remembered technically that I had some experience as assistant director, so I cleared my throat and sure, I have AD experience. Now, in retrospect, I may have left a few details out, like my only AD experience was for a short film in college. But I had heard that success often leads or starts with saying yes and being bold. So, scared to death, I took on the role. I figured I'd learn on the job. How hard could it be? Well, it was a nightmare. We began shooting 12 to 16-hour days, 7 days a week for 2 weeks straight, more like 16-hour days. And the director was always late. He'd be hours late, and I'd be trying to pick up his slack. And when he did arrive, he liked to yell, especially at the extras. He was crazy. But I was off juggling a million different tasks, trying to keep things running and dodging like his angry glares. And the stress kept piling up. Anyhow, things took an interesting turn when we started shooting at Akon's house. Yes, Akon. If you're not familiar, he's a music artist and producer, and he was our main character in the film, which was cool. And he had this incredible, beautiful house. But despite the surreal setting, the stress just kept piling up. And so combining the brutal 16-hour days of shooting, lack of sleep, and the egomaniac of a director, by the final days of shooting, my gums had developed this infection that transformed my face into something between like a cartoon character and a bee sting victim. Ballooned. So I started desperately searching for affordable medical care. I was trying to avoid that nightmare scenario of spending an afternoon with an oral surgeon and a $10,000 medical bill. Yeah, that'd have been a worse nightmare. I did a quick Google search for the cheapest urgent care facility in LA, and what came up was Hollywood, California, at 4.7 stars with almost 1,000 reviews. I'm in. Swollen face, broken dreams, driving into downtown Hollywood, I started recognizing the streets from like countless movies as a kid. Parked my car, and as I walked towards the 4.7 star urgent care clinic, I realized I was on the Hollywood Walk of Fame for the first time. I was stepping on the stars of legendary actors and directors I grew up watching. Despite my grotesquely swollen face, that looked like a botched surgery, I couldn't help but feel a bit of childlike joy. I had made it to Hollywood. So I made my way into the clinic, trying to avoid scaring anyone with my face. Within 20 minutes, a doctor walks in, and I swear he was an H&M model. Maybe that explained the 4.7 stars. I don't know. It would me. He was kind, friendly, cautiously optimistic about helping me, rightly so. But he needed a second opinion. So he brought in his colleague, and she was, of course, also an H&M model. Together, they looked like they came off the set of a Grey's Anatomy scene. It was just quite surreal. Thankfully, they were actually doctors, not just playing ones on TV. And the solution was simple: to drain the abscess with the syringe. It would cost me $120. Here's my credit card. Yes, please, I'm in. 3 pokes later, I was instantly relieved. The pain subsided, the swelling went down. I could finally walk around Hollywood with my head held high. So here's what I learned on my Hollywood misadventure. Movies taught me to dream big, to chase after what seemed impossible. They gave me the courage to say yes when the odds were against me. But real life has taught me something equally important: the power of saying no when a dream or an opportunity no longer serves you. So, to all of us chasing your dreams, I encourage you to be bold, be courageous, but also be wise enough to recognize when it's time to pivot, walk away, or rewrite the script. And if you ever find yourself in Hollywood with a swollen face or a bruised ego, I know a highly rated urgent care facility.
Well, Josh, I'm glad you're in one piece and back in the Northwest, where I dare say you probably belong. I certainly enjoyed hearing about the doctors who were actual MDs and not models. Okay. Well, telling our stories to each other can be so much fun. I really enjoy hearing everybody's stories and relating them to my own life. And I realize that there have been times when I needed to say no. So I think we all go through that at one time or another. But thank you for sharing that wonderful story with us, Josh. All right, onward to our third speaker, Alexander Harmon, and I guess he is in the room with the Palmer Toastmasters. So he is working on his presentation mastery pathway, level 2, understanding your presentation style. Alex was raised by 3 ladies: his grandmother, his mother, and his second mother, Roxy. They shared many memories. Memories like losing a first tooth, playing with the water hose on a hot day outside, even enjoying long walks in the park. Not everyone had a second mom like Roxy. Though short-lived, she sparked a love in him that still exists today. Telling us about the second mother, please help me welcome Alexander Harmon. Alexander.
Thank you, everyone. Now, everyone has had a friend. Well, mostly everyone. But generally speaking, most have had a friend that impacted them greatly in their life. My friend showed up when I was a young boy needing a friend, someone to play with, to be protected by, and cared for, kind of like a mother. Now, I already had a mother, of course, and she loved me dearly, but even she experienced how great of a friend she would have to be the whole family. That mother's name was Roxy. She was a beautiful brindle American pit bull, amazingly behaved, beautiful big brown eyes, and just such a sweet thing, a face that just looks up at you, just shake it, just whoop. She had such a fun side too. we would turn on the water hose in the summertime. And you know, when you put a kink in it and it has more power to it, so you just try to find in the kink where the best and more power was so you could spray the crap out of the person that you were spraying at the time. Well, she loved that. And she would just run around the yard, knocking over things, swing set, just wanting to be sprayed. You have to run after her yourself and even tie you up around with the water hose. Always such a fun time in 100-degree weather. She also had a sense of humor. There would be times where we would hear yapping or a barking of sorts, and we would run outside and see her actually trying to jump and catch wasps and big, well, bumblebees, but they're the carpenter bees, or what they're called. Essentially, they're huge bees with big black butts, and they drill holes into wood. She was always such a funny thing. I remember I had a loose tooth, right? We've tried everything, and I was thinking, why not? This could work. So in my smart mind, I had tied a string to her collar when we were outside, and I was thinking to myself, hey, it's being stubborn. I'll just attach it and let it go. Well, in the middle of me thinking about doing it and actually doing it, my uncle throws a ball. Off Roxy goes, and so does my tooth. Just bouncing along and stayed attached the whole time. It was amazing. We got to keep it. We didn't know what to call it. Now, Roxy had a certain intuition. You could almost say a mother's intuition. She could almost know when bad intentions were afoot. One day, my mother was taking her for a walk on the local trail called Bonadilla Trails. You had to usually have a dog of sorts because after Katrina, an alligator had gotten in, and so out of the local lake. Therefore, when you went, you actually had to watch for alligators. It was good to have either a gun or a dog. She was taking Roxy on the walk at the park, and there was a gentleman that approached that was a bit unsettling. Roxy, in the moment, stopped, started to growl a bit, wrapped her leash around my mother's leg several times, and told that man she wasn't having any of it. She was in front of her like a beautiful brindle brick wall. That guy wasn't having any of what that mama was cooking. Now, Roxy went on to have 3+ litters of puppies. Wow. If that number is even correct. Wow. Every single one had between 17 and the largest group was 31 pups.
Oh my gosh.
She was a hoss. Maybe it was because she was an Arkansas dog and she could give the Duggars a bit of a run for her money. If you don't know that joke, it's an old TV show about the Duggars from Arkansas. We loved Roxy, and unfortunately, all good things tend to come to an end. This one did so sadly. She went missing for a few weeks, and she was finally found. Unfortunately, Roxy's life ended up having to be ended because she was stolen and used for dogfighting. She was dropped off at the pound, and she was in such a tattered mess that you didn't really even recognize her.
Oh my gosh.
I imagine she did what any mother would do in that situation, and that was fight for her life. You see, every breed of dog can be raised and utilized in an evil way. Though pit bulls are demonized as dangerous and evil and not the family dog, it's quite contrary. They're actually fun, loving, beautiful, protective animals that do care about their family. It's not about how evil the dog is, it is about how you raise it. Except for Chihuahuas, they're evil and dangerous.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alex. That was wonderful. I really appreciate it. I think the best part of the whole thing was when you demonstrated Roxy's activities and how much fun she had, and that was perfect. Well done, well done. Wow, let's see. We have a break scheduled. So I think we might go ahead and take our break at this time. We're a little bit early. But personally, I could use a break. So let's take a 5-minute break. Our next speaker. He says, have you ever stood next to an old married couple? He says, fog lights, and she giggles. She replies, Uncle Phil. And he burst into laughter. It's like they're talking in code. Discussing his own adventures in marital communication, here is Kyle Hall telling us about my secret decoder ring. Kyle.
Thank you, Emmy, fellow Toastmasters. When I was getting ready for tonight's meeting, I put on a shirt and my wife looked at me and said, "Are you going to wear that shirt?" It wasn't this shirt. Now you might be thinking that my wife asked me a question. Are you going to wear that shirt? It wasn't a question. It was an order. It was an order for me to put on another shirt, a different shirt, a shirt that she would not be embarrassed for me to be seen in. Now, you might be asking, how does he know that? How does he know that what appears to be an innocent question is in reality an order? Well, fellow Toastmasters, my wedding came with a secret decoder ring. And it helps me understand that strange and mysterious language I call wife speak. Let me give you an example. My secret decoder ring helps warn me when there's trouble ahead. For instance, I ask my wife, "Hey, honey, we're going to go out for supper. Where do you want to go?" And she says, "Oh, I don't care." And I say, "Honey, your birthday's coming up. What would you like for your birthday?" And she goes, "Oh, I don't care." Now you might think my wife doesn't care. No, what she's really saying is, "Kyle, you get to show me how much you love me by guessing what I really want." My secret decoder ring also helps warn me when my wife asks me one of those really dangerous questions. Like, "Do you love me?" Or the even more insidious, "Why do you love me?" You see, most men, I think when they hear these questions, they think their wife is asking them a question and they try to answer the question and they just get themselves in trouble. My secret decoder ring tells me that when my wife asks me a question like that, she's not really asking a question. She's making a statement. She's saying, "I'm feeling low. I'm feeling vulnerable. And I need some support." So rather than trying to answer the question, I instead tell her how much she means to me, how she's the center of my life, and how I've built my life around her. Now, those are the advantages of my secret decoder ring, but it has a couple of disadvantages. First, it's one way. And second, it sometimes takes a while to learn a new phrase. Now, let's talk about the one way. So, when I'm busy reading the latest John Grisham novel and my wife comes in and starts talking to me and I'm going, uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. She doesn't seem to understand that uh-huh means I'm not listening to you and I'm not going to retain anything you've just said. Why doesn't she know that? Or when my wife asks me, "Kyle, what would you like for dinner? And I go, oh, I don't care. Why doesn't she know that means pizza? As I mentioned, my secret decoder ring, its second problem is it can take a while to figure out a phrase that has special meaning for my wife. So, for instance, a number of years ago, we only had one car between us, so we commuted to work together. Our works were close. We commuted to work, and the car was getting on in years, and it was going to die. I mean, it was getting to the point where we were putting more into the car every year to keep it on the road than it was worth. And I wanted to buy a used car. And my wife said, no way, no, we're going to buy a new car. Well, I couldn't stand the thought of buying a new car and losing 30% of the value when I drove off the lot. I wanted to buy a used car. And we discussed it, and we didn't come to a solution. And then a couple weeks later, we discussed it again, only with a little bit more energy. And we still couldn't agree. I wanted a used car, she wanted a new car. We still couldn't come to a solution. And then we had the discussion again, only this time it was much higher volume and much more energy. And I wanted a used car, she wanted a new car. We couldn't come to agreement. And finally, I gave up. I gave up. We're not going to buy a new car. We're not going to buy a used car. We're not going to buy a car. I don't know what we're going to do. Our car's going to die. But it's not worth my marriage to keep having this discussion. It just isn't. It was at this point that a friend of ours happened to mention that, hey, I'm getting a divorce and I'm moving back to the East Coast. And I've got this car I'm selling. Anybody wants to buy a car? And my wife, she elbows me. What? Go talk to her about the car. Why? Go make him an offer on the car. Why would I make him an offer on the car? You don't want that car. You don't want a used car. That's not a used car. Go make him an offer. It was at that point my secret decoder ring finally translated used car as my wife was hearing it. Every time I said I wanted to buy a used car, she was hearing that I wanted to buy an unreliable death trap sold by a pond-dwelling, scum-sucking used car salesman. Well, I didn't want to buy one of those either. What I should have been saying all this time is, honey, can we buy a non-new car from someone we trust? Well, we bought the car. Now, it is my habit when I'm giving a speech to practice the speech to get ready. And sometimes I practice in front of my wife so I can get her comments. So I practiced this speech for my wife last night. And she gave me her feedback, and my ring is having a little trouble translating. It hasn't gotten used to the phrase yet. So I'm hoping you can help me. I practiced my speech. I said, honey, what do you think? And she said, I love you anyway. Madam Toastmaster.
Oh, Kyle. The perfect gift for your wife at some point would have been a decoder ring of her own. Oh, marvelous. Thank you for sharing that, Kyle. Oh, wow. It struck me that your communication between yourself and your wife was a lot like my Santa Claus and the stocking thing. And I can just imagine if I had had a decoder ring and I had asked my husband if I had said something, not just, are you going to put anything in my stocking this year? Nothing like that. If I had said, maybe, honey, why don't you play Santa and fill my stocking? That might have got a bit of a response, don't you think? Yeah, I think we have to learn how to say things differently so that people actually hear us. All right. Well, that was our final speaker of the day. And I thought that it's time, well, I do know it's time to introduce our general evaluator. So we'll let her take it away. Our general evaluator this evening is Cynthia Sanderson. And she's going to evaluate our meeting. And I hope that she'll go ahead, because we're not having evaluations, to go ahead and make little comments about people's speeches. You have my permission, Cynthia. All right, here's Cynthia Sanderson.
Thank you. I enjoyed all of the speeches. I thought they were well done, and we started on time. We had a fun evening tonight with lots of guests, and we appreciate our guests. And I want to take a page from another club I'm in, and that we ask the guests what they think of the meeting. So, would any of our guests like to state any comments, suggestions, or feedback they have about our meeting?
Maybe we could put it in gallery view so we could see them. There we go.
Well, it's a quiet group tonight.
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you want to give feedback. Go ahead, Lisa.
Listen, yeah.
I'd like to say thanks to all, speakers and the Laugh Lab members for preparing this big show. Then I also feel like I owe something to all of you. It was so fun, and I think of the time and efforts the speakers put in their speeches, then I just enjoyed it. Then in that respect, I feel old. So yeah, thanks a lot. I'm,
All right. Do we want to call for the timers report, or should we do that a little bit later?
No, that's fine. You can.
Cheryl, would you like to give the timers report?
Yes, Cynthia, I can do that. I got involved in listening to the speeches. Everything was really great. I really enjoyed it tonight. But I'm pretty much, my times are pretty much close right on. And your speeches all were great. So when I give you your time, even if you went over, it was fantastic. So Mary, I got you at 8 minutes and 4 seconds. I think it was wonderful listening to your journey in getting lost. And I agree with you at the end. GPS is your friend. I'm just now getting used to my new GPS, and it seems to do the job right. Josh was our number 2 speaker, and I don't see that he's here anymore, but Josh came in at 6 minutes and 19 seconds. And next one was Alexander, and he came in at 5 minutes and 24 seconds. And the next one was Lee, and he came in at 7 minutes and 59 seconds. And Kyle came in at 7 minutes and 40 seconds. And I've listened to that decoder speech before, and it gets more interesting every time I hear it. So I really enjoyed hearing it again. And so that's the times for all the speeches. And even though some of them went over 7 minutes, it was all fantastic. Great speeches. I enjoyed it so much, and I listened for once. And I don't know why I was listening so carefully, because I had to watch the time too, but it worked. So I'll turn it back over to you, Cynthia.
Thank you, Cheryl. Yes, I had such a great time, and I hope everybody has. And Mary, I I have inherited the lost gene from both my parents. My stepmother at one point in time said, "Hand me the map," when we were out and about. And I said, I gave it to her and she goes, "Oh, you're just like your father." So I come by it honestly. And Kyle, I enjoyed the decoder ring. And I like Josh's, I always loved the decoder ring. And like Cheryl, I like your twist on it. And I hope you do one at some point discover what "I love you anyway" means. Lee, I think I've heard some version of that story before. I'm not sure, but it's funny every time, and it's worth hearing it. And I liked your signs and your props, and you're ripping them up. That was really good. And Alex and the Roxy story, I'm still feeling a little bad about Roxy, but it was a good story. And Emmy, your emceeing tonight was excellent as usual. And your little stalking stories that relate to we have, the women of my family have a tradition that we exchange names and fill each other's stockings so that we have something to open when all the others are opening their stockings that we have not bought ourselves. And brilliant, I know. So with that, I think I'm going to turn the meeting back over to Kyle, or the Toastmaster, which was Emmy. Sorry. I'm still getting over this cold I've had
It's
for a
going
month.
around.
And it's evil.
Okay. I would like to ask the members of the Palmer Club to just tell us what they thought of the meeting, if they enjoyed themselves, and any little comments they'd like to make.
Who's first? Thank you for inviting us tonight. I very much enjoyed all of the speeches. We were sitting around the table here. You can't see us that well. We were all laughing and thoroughly enjoying every speech. Kyle, your marital advice wrapped up in your speech was every man should probably listen to that speech and make all of their lives better. And Mary, I totally related to your story because my sister and my mother are in the same situation as you, and I have been so many places with them where they were going through what you do, and the insights you offer are helpful to me. I love the story of your adventure to Hollywood and under not very wonderful circumstances. Josh, it felt for you. And Lee, your story about gripes and getting rid of them was not only very funny, but also very relevant to life and good life lessons. So thank you for all of it. And Alex, of course, we've already been talking to Alex here in person. I also found his story wonderful, funny, entertaining, and heartwarming.
With great gestures.
With great gestures.
I enjoyed all the speeches, and Mary, particular, yes, I am like you. And I read a book once on people like us, and it didn't seem to offer any new helpful advice. If you've lived with this for all your life, by the age of 15, you've already developed all those coping mechanisms that the book seemed to suggest. But I had a handyman come out to a house we were looking at buying and fixing up, and we were outside, and he says, "Oh, this is underneath the bathroom." And I said, "Oh, really? That's amazing. We've just been inside the house once." And he says, "What, did you think it moved?" I just had no idea where we were in relation to the inside of the house when we're outside of the house. People actually do that? It's just amazing to me.
Well, thank you for letting me speak tonight. And one reason why I joined Toastmasters was to understand how to communicate to my wife better. So thank you, Kyle, for that testimony and sitting here. So thank you. I enjoyed all of them.
I like to comment just about the whole meeting in itself. I really enjoy just the whole flow of just navigating from one agenda item to the next. It was just very easy. And the pace was really quite enjoyable. It wasn't hurried, it wasn't rushed. It was really just relaxing, actually. So I really liked that. And then finally, the coordination of Zoom. That's an art in itself, and everything went really well with that. So great meeting.
Oh,
Great,
there she.
and I'm here too. Sorry, I think a little bit. We were trying to do some different things here in our space, but yeah, it was really fun. It was a great idea to join you guys. I really had a wonderful time. And yeah, Kyle, I'm going to get my husband the decoder ring. Thank you.
I knew there was somebody sitting back over there. I just knew there was somebody more in there, but thanks for showing your face. And Vicky, I'm so glad you're here, even though you haven't been feeling well. So
it's been a lot of fun to hear everyone's story. And I think we should do this again. You know, if Laugh Lab wants to do another event like this, we would love to be part of it. Thanks for allowing us to be here tonight.
thank you for joining us. It was really a lot of fun. What I'd like to do now is talk to our other guests. We have looks like three, and Linnea is Linnea or
Linnea.
Linnea. All right, Linnea has a comment.
I'm also from Palmer Toastmasters,
Oh,
and
you are.
I just always enjoy hearing funny stories. If I wasn't sick, I would have loved to share one, but my throat's a little not great right now, so long talks are not probably a good idea.
Okay, well, I'm glad you're here anyway. Guru Bandhu Khalsa, would you like to tell us your reaction to the meeting? Or, oops.
Sure. Yeah, thank you very much. I thought all the speeches were top notch, and I'm not saying that just to raise people's egos. They were very good, all of them, and all very funny. It's nice to be with another group and have a different perspective, and we enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right. So do you belong to Toastmasters yourself?
I'm with Palmer Toastmasters.
Oh, you are with Palmer also. Great.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad you were here. What about you, Tim? I see you. You
Yeah,
are
I'm
too?
from Palmer Toastmasters too. Yes, it's just I didn't make it down to the meeting. But yeah, I agree with Guru. It was great hearing a different perspective. It's like here in Alaska, we talk about being attacked by killer squirrels and things like that, you know, and it just we find, you know, we talk about things that we're familiar with, and you guys are talking about things that you're familiar with, and so I found it very interesting to see a different perspective on topics and even senses of humor. You know, I mean, that's something that is kind of affected by the culture a little bit, and so I think, you know, there's a lot we can learn from each other.
All right. Well, thank you for being here. What about you, Leisuk?
I already talked when general evaluator asked something, but again, thank you. and I really enjoyed it.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, Lee has something to say.
Yes, I have a comment for Kyle. Now, this is not about how to make his speech better, but I hate when a marriage ends. So, Kyle, I know this is going to happen. Your wife is going to ask you again, you going to wear that shirt? And you say, oh, this shirt? Oh, no, I was cold. I just put this on. I'm looking for the right shirt. Do you have any ideas what I should wear? And then that marriage will last forever. Back to you, Annie.
Thank you, Lee. Oh, yeah. Kyle, we love you anyway.
Well, if you don't mind me making a comment, I did this speech back when I used to live in District 2. I did the speech and competed up to the District Humorous Speech Contest where I got defeated. But so that was years ago. When I go over to District 2, I still have people walk up to me and say, hey, I remember that speech. And I still have women walk up to me and say, where can I get one of those secret decoder rings from my husband?
If you ever come across Kyle, go up to him and say, I like the shirt your wife picked out, Kyle.
I want to see you, Lee, in that little running suit. Mary.
I would just like to comment on how I loved the variety of stories and humor and the approaches to telling humorous stories we used tonight. So I noted like Josh started off with a really good context. I love movies, and he went from there to um, telling us a few characters, and then he built tension that was both between his job, his job, and then the physicality of the infection, and then wrapped it up. He relieved the tension along the way with some really nice humor, but he focused like on one long story, basically. Um, Alex or Alexander, I loved you. You had such great physicality in your humor, where you like literally you were jumping around, with the dog and with the ball, and that's such a joy and a treat to watch. But it was so different from what Josh did. The part of the difference being in space, in the room with someone where you've got that physicality, but also just the story itself. So it was fabulous. Well done. Lee had a theme, and then he built a series of anecdotes around the theme, which I'm like, oh, I love that process, that approach to telling a story. And then Kyle had he had this theme, the secret decoder ring, which is the perfect title because we remember it. And then he built all the anecdotes around them, but tied them all together because it was really about the relationship. It's about relationships, isn't it? Where we've all got to have some secret decoder ring with almost all of our relationships. So I loved that there was such a good variety of storytelling and humor tonight. So thank you.